Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Hobbydude 007 channel and Model Cars and Coffee with Hobbydude. In our last Model Cars and Coffee, I shared with you a mini diorama that paid tribute to Scale Auto Enthusiast magazine, as well as those guys that take the time during shows to photograph for the magazine so we can get our works of art in publications. Well, this week I want to share with you another mini diorama that pays tribute to a great NASCAR figure. Let's take a look. A number of years ago, at one of my visits to Petty Enterprises in Level Cross, North Carolina, someone was pointing out the different buildings and telling what they were. There's the office building over here. This is the fab shop area. This is the engine room. This is the body shop, and so on. And as I thought about these different buildings, I started thinking about the engine room, and I started thinking about all of those races that Richard won with Maurice's horsepower behind him. And I started thinking, hey, how could I pay a tribute to Maurice Petty? And I thought I would do another mini diorama with Maurice and a Hemi being the centerpiece. So, of course, Maurice, as most of you know, was Richard's brother, and he was a master engine builder. Maurice also was the first engine builder to be inducted into the International Motorsports Hall of Fame and is also a member of the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Maurice was a master with the Hemi, too. Well, to do this diorama, I decided to break out a few things that I had in my stash for a long time. I had one of the Fujimi garage and tool sets. Now, I wasn't going to use all of this. I wanted to use the door frame, the desk chair, the toolbox, the shelving unit, the welding helmet, and a couple of the tools out of it. But the rest of it really didn't fit what I wanted to do. Now, in that I did not get to go into the engine room, I thought, well, I'll just wing it, so to speak. So I broke out the Plastruct Evergreen, and I started putting together my plan. Well, first of all, the aluminum siding on the buildings, I went ahead and constructed that the same style and type, and back then it was kind of a blue color. So I decided that was going to be our exterior colors, blue and white. And on the inside of the base, as you see here, I'd cut out the place for the door and the door frame, added a shelf, got some primer on everything before I put the shelf up, and built in just a little bit of the base up front there, and I think it looked pretty decent. Well, some of the furnishings that went inside I wanted to build was a rolling cart that would be near the engine, and it would have tools and parts, things like that on it. And then it was time to start putting together and making a few things. So here's the engine stand for the Hemi. That is going to be the two main centerpieces would be Maurice and the Hemi. As well as I went ahead and put together the chair, and I got them in primer. The engine itself was actually a garage shop set, or shop scene 426 Hemi, from Ross Gibson engines. Always loved Ross Gibson engines, but these things look pretty good. Grabbed a set of valve covers, Hemi valve covers out of a Revell kit, and got busy. This engine block was very well detailed. All the water jackets, ports, everything were molded right in. It looked really, really good. Then I started gathering my research pictures for the valve, without the valve covers on. What did this thing look like? And wanted to get all of my research right, and started gathering all of my stainless steel tubes, everything that I was going to need to replicate the Hemi being worked on without the valve covers. And I think it overall turned out really nice. Here you see the resin parts and the rods that were going to replace it, those stainless steel rods that would replace a lot of those steel shafts that you see on the rocker arms. And here's a look of it finished. I had cut off the bottom where the molded in spring area was and coiled up some very small wire and put the springs down, and I think these really look good. And you see the bolt heads on there all throughout that. Those are actually from Protec, but I think it turned out well. And here is the engine on the engine stand. Love that Wix oil filter on there too. Next up, had to have some tools. So I went over to my stash of Detail Master interior junk sets, and there's a lot of wrenches and tools on a couple of set number 1 and set number 2. So I gathered all of those up, removed those from their frets and cleaned them up, and then it was off to the welding helmet. It was kind of, the scale was right, but it just didn't look right. It was really flat, so I built up the head a little bit. Then I added a halo inside that you adjust for the size of your head, because that's what it was going to be hanging up on. Then I started to get everything kind of test fitted, as I did in the Scale Auto diorama. Started kind of fiddling a little bit to see where everything was going to go, and I think this looked pretty good. Got primer on it. There's that toolbox from Fujimi. This is a really good toolbox. A couple of the drawers work, and I went ahead and had the top open too, so you'll see some tools in there here in a little bit too. Next up was some of the stuff to go all in the area there. So we have oil filters, we have gas cans, oil cans. There's a vise there. I also used that out of the garage set from Fujimi. And then here you see some of the other parts in primer. And you see the valve covers there. You see a couple of the double plenum intakes there. Those were some that I had cast. Originally, when I made those, it was for the Dodge Daytona that I had done, and casted up some extras, and so went ahead and just got those painted to have those kind of laying around in the shop. After everything was primed, went ahead and started getting color on there. The equipment blue, the red for the toolbox in the garage, and as you see here, the oil cans, gas cans, things like that, different colors. Then I turned my attention to the decals that were going to be in and on the diorama, and my friend Paul Singer was gracious enough to make these for me. I gave him the photographs and the sizes that I was going to need, so he scaled them and printed those off for me on, I think it was like Tester's decal paper. Now this was a long time ago too, guys, so decal stuff, paper and all that stuff has come a long way. And here you see the Maurice name tags and the shirt Petty Enterprise patches, and here's some of the oil cans, this Union 76 oil cans finished up. Then there were some of the little things I wanted to get into, and I used RB Motion's spark plugs to display the plugs out, and as you see here, these things are absolutely beautiful. After I painted the porcelain on the top of the plugs, I made the plug tray and had that sitting on the workbench. Next up, you see the finished oil filters, the Wix oil filters there. And then we were over to the gas cans, the intercom, and the telephone. Now the telephone, when I finished this one, someone pointed out that looks a little too modern for the early to mid 70s for a shop, and I thought, you know what, they're right. So broke the evergreen back out again and scratch built a telephone. One more befitting, a rotary phone, more befitting that era, and here it is finished up. Also went ahead and knocked out a couple of fuel cells to put in the floor, just kind of stack around, just some old fuel cells. And then it was off to a few other odd ends to be laying around the shop, such as the clutch pressure plate, flywheel, and the bell housing. And here's the clutch pressure plate and flywheel painted up, and got a little bit of weathering on them, and I think those turned out nice too. Here's one of the double plenum intakes finished, and the valve covers. Had to have a few sets of those as the engine is being assembled, just the parts that would be needed laying around. And here's that welding helmet finished up. That's going to be hanging on our shelving unit. And we had to have a few boxes of Holley carburetors. So once again, Paul came to the rescue with printing up some decals for the Holley boxes. And here's a shot of one of the Holleys sitting on top of the box, which you'll see in the diorama too. And the bell housing in equipment blue. And duct tape. Can't have a shop without duct tape. These were really simple to make, guys. All I did was took one of the evergreen tubes, and I think this was Plastruct actually tubes, and measured them into 2-inch scale, and then when I cut them in two, I simply took a hobby knife and kind of laid it into the side of it and peeled it up just a little bit so it would look like the edge of a piece of duct tape sticking out. Painted them silver and did a little wash right there in the groove, and I think that makes a convincing little roll of duct tape. Then some of that stuff from the Detail Master interior junk set. We've got a clipboard here. That'll be for a check sheet. And those tools, once I got them taken off and cleaned up, finished up the toolbox and added some decals and just something for the shop there. And then here's a look at it with the tools installed. Well, put in the toolbox anyway, and added a roll of that duct tape right there. And then the little cart that was going to be sitting beside the engine. I thought that was the perfect place for that clutch and pressure plate, as well as some of the tools. And as you see, that clipboard, I went ahead and put a 426 Hemi check sheet, which I'll be honest with you, I doubt very, very seriously Maurice ever needed that. But for this diorama, I thought it was pretty cool. So I added it along with a technical manual. And I'm sure, again, Maurice had all of that in his head too. But I thought it would be fun to have him around. Next up was Maurice himself. We had to have a good figure of Maurice, and I took this picture, and I noticed all these guys during the week had their white shop uniforms on, and Maurice has his name on one side and the Petty Enterprise patch on there, and as you see here, we've added that to our figure. And then it was a matter of chroming the chair and then getting some semi-gloss dusted on that. Next up, you got to have some shop rags. Now this particular one I designed to be hanging out of Maurice's back pocket, which you'll see when we get to the diorama. And there's some other ones laying around as well, a little soiled. Then I used from Scenes Unlimited, and by the way, that clutch pressure plate and bell housing came from Scenes Unlimited. And these light switches and electrical outlets also came from them. All I did was paint them silver. Well, I primed them with Tamiya fine surface primer, shot them silver, and then went back with just a light wash to bring out the highlights there, and then painted the switches themselves black. And then it was time to add some tunes. You know, Maurice was a big Willie Nelson fan, and I thought, got to have a radio in there. So I built a box, took some fine mesh screen for the speaker grill, and started putting that together, and we'll get a look at that when we look at the diorama too. And then we had to have a floor mat. Now this was kind of fun to make. I took a piece of masking tape, put it down, put a piece of screen down over that, shot it gloss gold gray, and when it cured, I took one of the decals and put it over that gloss gold gray, let it cure just a little bit, and then I soaked it in microsol and microset. And I mean, I soaked it. I actually put some down, put the decal over it, and then just soaked it all over the top of it. put it in the dehydrator, let it soak in, and just pull that decal right down into it, so it made a very convincing looking floor mat. I then, to give it a little bit of a worn look, I wanted the edges rolled a little bit, so I cut it out. Well, as you see, it gives it a little bit of a worn look. I started to put some shoe prints on it, and I thought, well, I don't want to really deface that beautiful logo there, so I just gave it a little worn look otherwise. As we move to the base itself, as I said, I used Tester's Intermediate Blue here, which closely resembled the blue that was on the exterior of the building at that time, with the white trim. And the door, now you notice the base around the bottom, I went ahead and painted that petty blue except for the very front, and you'll see that in a minute too. The door, I added a Petty Enterprise logo, a stainless steel doorknob, and the deadbolt tumbler key, whatever, up at the above the doorknob there. And inside there were some blank spaces. I'll show you a few close-ups here. Right above the door, it just had a lot of empty stuff there, so we found a collage and put that on there of just some older petty cars, and I thought that really looked good. And you also get to see the fire extinguisher there, as well as the light switches, the intercom system, the phone, the radio down there. And then right over the toolbox, there was also a blank space. I had an old glue bomb that I bought at a show of one of the MPC 71 Plymouths, and I took it out, cut a piece of the quarter panel off, and painted it up, dressed it up really nice, just as a wall hanging that'd fill in that blank space on the wall there. And moving over to the bench area, you see a set of valve covers on the left, a hacksaw, a hammer. Above and below there you see the double plenum intakes, those fuel cells. You've got an electrical outlet down below. There's one right behind the radio there. A few wrenches laying there. There's the spark plug tray. Everything, I think, overall turned out pretty good. And the light is pretty bright on this. That's kind of an off-white paint on the walls and stuff, but I think it looks pretty good. And here you see the welding helmet hanging on the shelving unit, and on the shelving unit up top there you see the Champion spark plug boxes. Then we've got a row of Wix oil filters, the Holley carburetors, and you've got those Union 76 racing oil cans all the way down, and then there's our bell housing and our flywheel down there. And that toolbox tucked over there. So let me reset the camera, guys, and I'll put it on a turntable, and we will take a look at the finished diorama. Okay, guys, starting on the outside, as we look at that entry door into the engine room, I've got a little bit of, I think the term that Lucas C uses is schmutz, but a little bit of greasy hands on the door, around the doorknob and the keyhole there, and the door frame, just a little bit old metal door there. And as we turn our turntable around here, and if you remember from that first picture there, how that was the blue and with a white trim on those old buildings, now everything is white. And as we get into the shop itself, we have our first look at Hemi by Maurice. And I'm going to turn this around in the light so we can see a little bit better. As you see, we have our duct tape, I guess I should have dusted the shelves off a little bit. Our Champion spark plug boxes there, our Wix filters, our Holley carburetors, our welding helmet hanging right here on the edge of the shelf, our oil cans, and there is that flywheel and bell housing. I'm getting in my own light there, guys. Then the toolbox. Get around here where we can see it a little better. And again, I think I'm in my own light here. There's our wall hanger and a calendar, a hot rod calendar. And once again, you see those Hemi valve covers, a hacksaw, hammer, a couple of those double plenum intakes, carburetor on a carb box. There's that radio, and you see it's plugged in. Listening to some Willie. And there's our spark plug tray, telephone, all of the other stuff we talked about. And there's that doormat. And you can see where the concrete floor, I kind of sputzed up a little bit there too. One of those shop rags laying there. One up on the counter. And one in the back pocket. But overall, guys, I think this turned out really nice, and it pays tribute. You know, we always build the models of Richard's stuff, but and we do remember Maurice, of course. Without his horsepower and his knowledge, Richard may not have all those wins. So wanted to pay tribute. Again, I'm not a great figure painter, but I wanted to catch the essence of it. Got his hand on that oil filter there. There's another look at that Ross Gibson shop series engine. But pretty cool. And this, by the way, is probably going to be a donation to the Petty Museum. Or not probably, I've already talked to Mark Petty about it, and I think they're eager to get it anyway. So, but I think this turned out really, really nice, and just wanted to share that with you guys. So, Hemi by Maurice. Guys, hope you enjoyed. Till next time, God bless. I hope y'all have an absolutely awesome week. See you in the next one.